I'm Paul Harris filling in for McGraw today. If you were listening yesterday, you heard McGraw's interview with Seth Rogen about the new movie that he stars in, co-wrote and co-directed with his friend Evan Goldberg. It's called This Is the End. Also stars James Franco, Jonah Hill, Jay Baruchel, Danny McBride, Craig Robinson, as cameo appearances by Michael Cera and Emma Watson. In fact, Emma Watson is involved in one of the funnier scenes in the movie. The movie is essentially about Rogen and Baruchel playing themselves. Everybody in the movie plays themselves, and they go over to James Franco's house for a party, and during the party, stuff outside starts to go crazy, apocalyptic kind of stuff. And Emma Watson shows up at the house, and it's her and these 5 or 6 Hollywood stars, and they ask her how she got there and what she saw.
I hid in a drain pipe for days, like 3 or 4, I don't even know how many. And then I stopped hearing people, and I started hearing growling noises.
Out there in your travels, did you see anything that you would describe as apocalyptic?
I mean, no, but no. I would say it's completely obvious what's going on here. I mean, it's a zombie invasion. That
is Hermione from the Harry Potter movies, Emma Watson, in a cameo role in This Is the End. David Blaustein is our movie critic. He went to see it. Let's see what he thinks about This Is the End. Hi, David. How are you?
Hey, Paul. How are you? Well, look, I love this movie, and I'm not going to apologize for it. I think it's a really filthy farce that is actually quite intelligent, as dumb as it seems. And you know, I keep an open mind when I go into movies, but I did get the feeling that this is something that looked funny in the trailer, and they could only keep it funny for 5 or 6 minutes. I didn't think they could sustain it throughout. But for me, I thought they sustained it throughout, and I think there's at least one very filthy scene in this movie that will be kind of a classic.
I think that I went to see a screening of it a couple of nights ago, and despite what I thought ahead of time, I actually found myself laughing out loud. And I don't laugh out loud in movie theaters very often, but this one had me doing that a couple of times, mostly because of these stars playing themselves and poking such fun at themselves and the characters that they've played, or in Seth Rogen's case, the one character he's played in every movie.
I think they did such a good job of self-deprecating humor and playing off of what their public persona is perceived to be. I'll give you an example. I saw this movie. I went with 2 other people, and they're 2 people who are in the entertainment television business. They're very well-connected people, and we started talking about Jonah Hill. And I said, and I'm being honest, I said, quite frankly, I don't love Jonah Hill. I find him, the several times I met him, he's, you know what, I don't want to, I'll just say that I don't have a very high opinion of Jonah Hill.
Yeah.
And on a personal level, although he may be a very nice guy, like my several experiences with him, he didn't seem, he was just so nice. I just didn't think he could possibly be that nice.
Yep.
And we go and the movie starts, and that is exactly how they portrayed him.
Yeah.
They portrayed him almost as if they were listening to my description of him in this particular cab. And so he is very well aware that he has this particular reputation, and clearly his friends are aware that he has this particular reputation. And I just thought that was great. Also, James Franco, his willingness to paint a huge target on his back and let Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg fire at will at close range was fantastic. Like, I forgive him now for the Oscars. I mean, I forgive him forever. I mean, that's how good I think this is. I also think it's one of those movies, when you see it the first time, if you just thought it was kind of funny, I think if you go and see it a second time, you'll think it's even funnier, and it'll get funnier, because I found it to be some really great satire and some very interesting commentary on this YouTube, look at me, celebrity first culture that we are existing in. And, and even though it seems so silly, there was a lot of very intelligent commentary in there.
I think that we should warn people that if you don't like raunchy, really R-rated comedies, do not go see this movie. But if
it is super, super filthy. And that's how I describe, in my review that I put out to all of our affiliates and my long-form written review that I think will be posted on abcnews.com later today, that's what I call it. I call it a filthy farce because that is what it is. It's like the filthiest farce. And the funny thing is, there's really no sex in it per se. I mean, there is one scene, I guess, but otherwise, it's just the conversation. I mean, that conversation between Danny McBride, the argument between Danny McBride and James Franco about a particular sex act was really one of the funniest things I've seen in a movie in a long time. I mean, I had my head resting on my hand with my, with my head tilted down, my eyes trained up on the screen, and I was just like shaking my head. I can't believe I'm seeing this in an R-rated movie, and it's hilarious. I mean, it's so filthy it could embarrass a porn star.
Yeah. I would agree with you, and actually that's one of the scenes in the movie I didn't like, but
that's funny.
but that's okay. I will tell you, Craig Robinson in this movie is so funny, and you say there's no sex in there, but we should point out that Michael Cera, who has this, even from Superbad, he has this kind of I'm the innocent little guy who doesn't do anything. In this movie, he parodies himself as a coke-addicted sex addict who is just everything opposite who his public persona is. You talk about Jonah Hill playing himself and these other guys playing exaggerated versions of themselves. Michael Cera, I assume this is not really himself. It's very funny. And the Emma Watson stuff was hysterically funny.
That's the thing about this movie. Look, there are things in this movie that are going to put off some people. Like, you didn't like that particular scene. But if that puts you off, you'll find something else that you will think is really funny. And what probably made this movie seem even funnier to me is I saw it the day after I saw The Internship, which was just such a mediocre retread of things that I've seen before and that everybody involved in that comedy has done before, that this was just so different and so fresh. And I just think this has been as far as the quality of movies go, I think this summer has been really terrible. I'm really down on the quality of movies that have come out this summer.
Yep.
And I just think that to me, this is a stellar comedy. And, I understand, look, part of my job is being a movie critic. Everybody has a different opinion. Everybody feels differently about what they see. It's based on the experiences that have informed them throughout their life. But I just found this movie to be like, if you're in a bad mood, this movie's the perfect elixir. It'll put you in a great mood afterwards.
I do have to add one more thing. I like the movie, but I do think it falls apart in the last half hour. The first 60, 70, maybe the first 80 minutes of this movie, I found very, very, very funny, with a couple of exceptions, like the scene you mentioned. But I think in the last half hour, I think when Rogen and Goldberg decided, okay, we have to wrap this thing up, it kind of falls apart towards that resolution.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand why you would say that, and I think your brilliant producer, Frank Ladd, based on the conversation we had before I got on the air, I think he felt the same way. I didn't necessarily feel that way. I thought there were some really good nuggets in those last 10, 15 minutes. Again, it was silly, and I think that every comedy, they always have trouble wrapping up the movie, and I agree that some of it felt a little forced, and that's why, to me, it's not a perfect comedy. But there were some things, I don't even want to mention it, but, there's a fairly famous actor there's an extremely famous leading man that shows up towards the end of this movie, and I thought what they did with him was 100% hilarious.
The woman, the woman in the seat next to me.
You know what I'm talking about.
The woman in the seat next to me in the theater when I saw this the other night. It was a packed theater. She went, I can't. Oh my. She was like out of control. And then with the finale, well, I don't want to spoil it, but she's going to tell everybody in the world to see that movie. I wouldn't say that for everybody, but I would say if you want a raunch fest that's pretty funny, this is a good one.
Yeah, it was like being a teenager and telling and hearing dirty jokes for the first time is kind of what I felt like.
David Blaustein, our film critic from ABC News. Thanks for joining me this morning.
My pleasure.
The movie is called This Is the End. Opens today, 8:31 at the Big 550 KTRS.